let's give Dr. Fulani, Dr. Grusky, and the young people from New York and California another round of applause. We really appreciate your being here. It's now my pleasure to moderate our final panel of the day, this panel of distinguished guests who will be discussing what all this means for our city, the city of Dallas. Please welcome back Gabrielle Kurlander, Dr. Lenora Fulani, and Antoine Joyce. And we're also joined by Delores Sosa-Green, Executive Director of Trinity River Mission here in West Dallas, and Dallas philanthropist and businessman Hunter Hunt. I'm good. So I think, Antoine, to make a segue from our last presentation, I want to ask you whether 23 years ago you would have been answering these questions in the same way. And some of the stories that the students shared and feelings they expressed, or students, young people shared and expressed, were those the same feelings you had?
Yeah, they, I'm not going to repeat everything, but they say it all. It is normal. I mean, there's a part of my life that I don't remember very well, because I remember my mother being married to a man that wasn't my father, and then they had an argument, and then I lived in Brownsville with different family members for a while, and I had 3 brothers, and we had a 2-bedroom apartment. And the roaches and the mice is just something that was in every one of those homes in Brownsville, and it was in my home. So it was just a normal thing, There was no other viewpoints in my life until, the All-Stars, and so a lot of first experiences. I mean, first time out of the country, first time everything, first time on a plane was all All-Stars related, and the first time out of New York, I mean, so many people tell me here in West Dallas the same thing. The kids go 10 minutes out of West Dallas, and they think they're going, they pack their bags because they think they're going somewhere, they're traveling.
Right.
First time I left New York City, I see mountains. I was like, we have mountains in New York City? But I've never been there. I mean, Times Square was Santa Claus. So Ernst & Young or American Express or whatever, none of those buildings meant anything to me until a supporter invited us inside and said, well, here's what I'm doing. Oh, there's a trading floor. Why do they have 4 monitors? There's like all these things that you just don't have any experience of knowing. So I could talk about it now, but back then it's like, just to get across the street from a public school and not have a fight was a success. And you had to fight every day. So,
Hunter, why Dallas? Why now?
Hopefully today has kind of given a sense that it's a little bit different of an organization. The 2 defining moments, at least in my relationship with the All-Stars, which I think is why I believe there's room for this in Dallas, and it plays an important role. Very early on, and after I'd given my $10 and faithfully left my phone number, Chris Street, the director of development, asked me to come down and do host training with the youth. They were going to do the first fundraiser where they're going to put the All-Star Youth at the table with donors, and they wanted to teach them how to interact with white guys, and they were down the street at the time, and so I went down and volunteered, and right before I walked into the room, Chris said, now realize this is going to be the first time that these youth will have spoken to a white male in a non-authoritarian role in their life, where it's not a teacher or somebody they're serving as part of their job. And what really hit me like a ton of bricks was I could actually reverse that since college and say it was the first time that I had spoken to a black youth in a non-authoritarian role since then. And I'd always considered myself, I'm not that guy, basically. I mean, I hosted an intercultural summit when I was the vice president of the student body at SMU. These were issues that I cared about. I mean, I was not the bubble guy. And I'd just gone from age 21 through 28 not speaking to black youth. And that left a really lasting impression. The other component is part of the Development School for Youth. I took on an intern who came in through a mock interview, and it was very apparent through the sheepishness of the answers, he was very embarrassed about his circumstances when I was sitting there realizing he'd overcome more by the age of 16 than I ever will in my entire life and had no context around that whatsoever. And he was a fabulous intern and did a lot of web research and that sort of stuff. But at the end of the summer, we went out and I asked him the question, so what was your biggest surprise? And he said, honestly, I basically said, I thought you guys with the briefcases, I thought you basically carried them back and forth between buildings. Like we were mailmen or FedEx folks, and that was our job. And it was endearing. Until I realized, actually I see a bunch of Hispanic youth hanging around in East Harlem at a street corner. You ask me, what are they doing? I would say they're, either getting ready to deal drugs or they're gonna go rob somebody. It was as equally absurd, the projections that I had about what are the youth doing hanging out on the corner, as it was his view that we were all, just shuttling around briefcases back and forth. And I think, Dallas is a fabulous, energetic city. But it's a very heterogeneous city organized in very homogeneous pockets. And I think one of the intriguing things about the All-Stars is it takes a different view of community in the sense that we're side by side, but we don't master that dialogue of interaction quite as well as we should. And as you can tell, it's very grassroots. And so my hope is if we can capture some of that ought to work in any major city. And we can bring that to Dallas. There's a lot of awareness now that we need to be breaking down the walls between our different communities, but we're a little short on ideas or different different mechanisms for doing that. And I think All Stars could fill a role in that.
So I want to ask Lenora a question, and I want Delores to follow with an answer to the same question. But Lenora, the question I have for you is, what were the biggest challenges in founding the All-Stars initially? And then Delores can answer, what do you think are going to be the biggest challenges to getting this off the ground in Dallas, given your work in the community?
What were the biggest challenges? This may sound completely insane. I don't think I think of things that much as challenges. Their parents said they need some after-school programs. And we said to the kids, what do you want to do? And that conversation it was the roots of the All-Stars. And we shaped and built off of that. To me, that's the most glorious activity in the world. Maybe it has to do with coming from poverty, where you can take next to nothing and create something that landed us in Dallas. I think that's pretty powerful. So I really, I think that we've been able to, because what we produced works, people are moved by the kids, the work, the commitment, we've been able to win people over to supporting what we do. I guess one thing that I felt very strongly about 30 years ago was that we were going to be able to create with young people in the community and their families. I grew up in those communities, and I had a sense of how much need there was and passion for doing something else. What I didn't expect, I never thought about it, was that we were going to be able to have white, wealthy people respond to the kids in the ways that they did. And I think it has to do with the quality of the programs, but they also really don't know each other. So you put them in a room together, and if you take away all of the pretense and introduce the one to the other, it's as magical as getting on stage and performing in a talent show. So I think if there was something that I thought was going to be problematic or hard or something. That was probably it, but it isn't, and I really go for it. I love it.
So I know that she's an optimist because earlier when we were standing backstage, I said, I wished we'd had more people come. And she said, are you kidding? There are 80 people here. This is huge. So anyway, so Delores, with that thinking and your experience in West Allis and throughout the city, what do you think will be the challenges?
Well, based on the videos that I saw, you're doing the right thing by going door to door. That right there is key, because working in West Dallas, and I work with predominantly Hispanic families, you know, trust is a huge thing. So that's a cultural thing that you have to be aware of. But the fact that you're going door to door to talk to these people, that's going to get them a little bit trust. They may not want to open the door first, but at least you're going door to door and saying, here's what we have to offer, here's what we're doing, here's what we're going to do for your kids, and educating them on that. I think, for me, I don't know if I see it as a challenge, because that's the right way to do it. And the other way to do it, so it's not so much of a challenge, is get to know your partners, which I think you're doing that already, because those partners that are already in those communities and already doing good work for those families, they will get you in the door. They will open the door for it, as long as you can provide and prove what your results are and that you are a good program. Because I'll be the first one to tell you, I will evaluate you before I will advocate for you. So before I will present it to my families, because our families trust Trinity River Mission. If TRM says that's a good program, you need to do it, okay, we'll do it. So, but you're already on the right track.
So are you going to open the door?
I'm going to have to look at your results. Yes, definitely.
So, Gabrielle, stepping back and looking at this from a big picture level, I want to know how has it been in other experiences transitioning from New York to Newark to Chicago to San Francisco? How have the different cities and their uniquenesses played into the growth of the All-Stars? And what do we expect from the process? What will the process look like?
Well, I think the reason I feel good about there being 80 people here is I feel like you're the right 80 people. You know, and the people who I met here, I just appreciate you coming today, and I'm very touched that you've come. I say that in answer to your question because the All-Stars, maybe going to what you were saying about the door-to-door, you know, the All-Stars, it has to be built. It doesn't just come in. It doesn't even matter how much money there is. You know, sometimes I dream that, you know, maybe someday someone will give us $100 million, right? But all we do with $100 million is just, you know, mobilize more people to build it step by step. It doesn't get kind of imposed. So every city has a different culture, has different challenges, transportation challenges. Some of them, when you come into a city like we went into Newark, New Jersey, and people, literally Newark, which is, you know, one of the poorest small cities in the country, everyone said, don't go into Newark, New Jersey. The kids won't travel, they won't do what they do. I can't tell you how many people tried to discourage us from going into Newark, New Jersey. Now we are, you know, one of the leading programs, after-school programs. We have a beautiful center in downtown Newark, and these kids who we stand out in the street and their families who we meet, they come, you know, in droves, and now we're even bringing people from the suburbs there too, who don't like to go to places like Newark because they feel like it's not going to be safe for them. They've never been there, so they're breaking down those barriers too. I think that we have a long history with building trust with people in the poor communities, and that's a reason why we've never taken government funding, is because you take government funding. Someone was just saying to me earlier, you know, we used to have after-school arts programs for the kids, but the funding's been cut. So what happens if you're a program where then your funding gets cut, you know, you hurt your trust with the community because people are like, well, you came when there was a grant and then you're gone. And we take very seriously our reputation in the community because that allows you to do everything you do. So door-to-door is like our bread and butter, you know, and so it's, I think that one of the reasons I'm touched by the people who are here today is because for us to be successful, people have to decide to build it. The young people have to decide to get involved. People have to decide to give a little bit of money or a lot of money. People have to decide to volunteer, you know, and so it is actually the creation of the program is part of what socially is social transformation. There isn't a separation between those two things. And so then I think, as Antoine talked about, growing up, when you have experienced the building of it, you feel very gratified because you feel like you've been part of creating something new. And there's always something, if you raise a child or whatever you do, something very beautiful about that. I know when I went to Trinity River Mission, the thing, and I visited your wonderful program, the thing that touched me was just, the spirit in the young people's eyes. And they seemed obviously so happy to be there and to be having the things that you're providing them with. And, books, but there was a pool table too, and the kids just had, and your staff. And I believe in that. I think we have to have a lot of heart in what we do in this area, and sometimes we don't have enough heart. So
Antoine, can you reflect for us on standing in front of Minyard's grocery store, and what did people say to you in West Dallas when you and Betsy and others were saying, come show us your talent, and how did they respond?
Yeah, I think it goes to what Delores was saying. I mean, we're learning. You learn fast, that people are very closed. So the first interaction, the very first Saturday, they say, I ain't got no talent. I don't know nobody got talent. The second Saturday, they go, oh, you're here again. Or, I met some kids, and then, that's coupled with, I went to 4 resident council meetings in the housing developments and met all the elder stateswomen and their kids. We've done workshops. Trinity introduced us to their teenagers. I went to the West Dallas Community Church, and actually that's what it turned the coin. It was that was the 4th thing, and I stood in front of the West Dallas Community Church and spoke. And as soon as I sat down, this is in church, the woman goes, you was at my projects and I was falling asleep, but now I know what you do. I'm happy you're here, brother. I was like, okay. And so now, I see kids in the community and they come up to me and they give me files. I'm like, he goes, you came to my school. I was like, right, yeah, there you go. So it was, so their minds are changing. You see that, and again, it's not like tomorrow. Next talent show, we're gonna have 1,000 kids come out. There's still parents who are afraid. One of my volunteers, her mother was very nervous about her picture being on some of the displays, and asked me not to do that. Another parent, I asked her to come down to First Presbyterian Church where my office is at, and she said, I don't take the highway, so I'm not going. And I'm standing in West Dallas going, it's right there. But they don't leave their community. So we also, so that's what we face. And again, like you said, Delores, we're looking to partner with the groups here because we want to gain that trust, and we want to also just learn more about the community and see what niche we can fill in this community.
So Delores, you, as well as anyone, knows the sort of after-school programming for kids in Dallas. Is there room for this kind of activity and after-school programs in the city?
Oh, of course there is. There's always room for activities that will develop youth in any way, because it's, especially the kids that live in West Dallas, there are so many, now with the new restaurants that are there, a lot of opportunities are opening up, but there's still so much poverty going on there. There's going to take a long time for it to get rid of that. And these kids really just need something to do. I have tutored 2 girls since they were in the 4th grade. They are sophomores this year in high school. And one of them told me, Delores, if I didn't have TRM to come to, I would be in so much trouble. I would be getting into so much trouble right now. Right. And the fact that she was honest about that with me said a lot, that, okay, we've got to make sure these kids are busy. Because, and not till 6 o'clock, we're open till 8, but all the time as much as they can be, and have their interests, because that's going to help them to develop, that's going to help them to, with the All-Stars, what they're doing, getting kids on stage to do a lot of different things. If you would have came to me when I was a teenager, I would say, oh, there's no way I'm going on stage. But you'll have some of those kids come out, but there's room for a lot of that. And, I hear a lot about duplication, don't duplicate, but, if you have all these kids and you can only serve 200, what about the other 10,000 that are not getting anything because you're full? So there's a lot of room for that.
And we know that only a fraction of kids in West Allis, for example, actually
Exactly.
access after-school programs
Exactly.
at all. Hunter, we've talked a lot today because of the model that the All-Stars Project uses to reach youth, but how are we going to reach people on the other side? The folks, the white guys with the briefcases. What's our plan, and how can we be part of that plan?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, I think one of the interesting things about the All-Stars is, and I'll put it in the context of an initiative that I think is terribly important, which is the Grow South initiative. Is fabulous, and it's hitting at the right time, and the city's aware of it, and they're really focused on it. And I would also submit that there's a component that you could add to it, which is South Grow, and I think that there's a sense of there's a real energy when you get into these communities, and I learned this through the All-Stars, where early on I got bundled up into the subway. I went to the South Bronx to a talent show, and I stood out a little bit in the South Bronx, and it was absolutely fabulous. And the energy level was infectious. People couldn't have been nicer. It was not, here's a donor, we're going to alter the plan. It was an amazing experience to step into a neighborhood in an authentic way in that neighborhood. And I think what made it so authentic was the grassroots element of it. There was not an ounce of it that was geared towards me or that was directed by me as a donor. I was accepted into a dialogue in the community. And I do think that there's a hunger for that of everybody, both recipients of these efforts, but also the donors that make it possible. That there's always a desire to actually see the things that you're giving your time or your money to provide that energy level that ultimately is symbiotic. And so I think a lot of it is just simply exposure. And I think you can tell from the youth that are here, they very quickly sell themselves. I've realized to shut up and just step back because they're far more articulate than I am. And Antoine hooked me early on. I met him early on in the process. And my hope is that energy is infectious and pulls more people in. It certainly has worked that way in New York. I've been stunned at the level of corporate support in New York that's shown up for the All-Stars and made this all possible.
Good. So, Gabrielle and Lenora, you take turns, or how does the DSY, is that what it's called? How does that work, and how will that happen in Dallas? Beyond the talent shows, how will the Development School for Youth happen?
I mean, basically, where DSY, how it grew in New York, and obviously we now know what it's responding to. Young people were asking us to help them be more successful in life, and relative to how we understand what poverty is. A big piece of that is the degree to which people are unworldly and aren't cosmopolitan because they're not connected to the world in ways that make them that way. And there were donors also at the time when we first started who were very much interested in having another connection to the young people. So you put that all together, basically, and you introduce the two populations. And for me, what DSY is kids stepping into a whole other world, corporate America. I remember one kid who had an internship one summer came back and said, "You know what they do on the 17th floor of that building?" And I thought that was both, I thought it was beautiful because who cares? But on the one hand, he was like, he knew something about the world. And one of the things I like about DSY, and I think it's going to be as easy to do it here as we've done it other places, we have a great leader, is when the working people inside those offices, who often are middle class or more, look at poor Black and Latino kids and say, they're just like my kids. I love it when the kids go, they wrap these people around their fingers. What they see on TV and what they see in the newspaper are all kinds of things that are so negative, and then you put the groups together, it's just phenomenal. I mean, the young people stay in touch, it's a way that we can transform what our communities look like and what our world looks like. It raises the issue of what kind of country do we want to be, and it helps to push that conversation. So yes, we're going to do DSY and everything.
The kids love to call it DSY, Development School for Youth. We're going to start here just specifically in Dallas by doing a set of bridge building workshops starting later this year and into the summer. And so that'll start to take groups of kids into different kinds of more cosmopolitan settings, including corporations, arts organizations, different kinds of places. And it'll be like, pardon me?
Universities?
Universities, yeah. We're going to be calling on you. Universities, exactly. And then from there, we'll launch, start to launch the DSY program, which includes a summer internship component at corporations where young people are trained and then given professional jobs in corporations. And I think that that's part of how we'll build just going to your earlier question about the donor base. We do grassroots kind of work on building our donor base, just like we do on, reaching the kids. And so anybody here, for instance, who'd like to hold a house party and just, we'd come and we'll bring some young people we're working with here in Dallas, and we'll tell you about what the All-Stars is, introduce your friends to it, and then if they want to, give $1 or $25 or $1,000, they can, or, they can give if they choose, but we'll build a broad base of support, financial support to it, all levels, and then a lot of involvement from those people as well.
We have a few minutes for questions. This panel was designed to sort of help us see how the All-Stars will launch and grow. Antoine and Betsy have helped us see at least the launch, now how we grow. But any specific questions people have?
I'm working on a project specifically in South Dallas. I've heard you talk a lot about West Dallas. Are you already committed to a particular area of Dallas to start, or how do we reach out?
The short answer is no. Part of what's wonderful about our funding is that we never really have to say we're just going to work with this demographic or just this district or just this area. I think we have started in West Dallas because of some of the connections. Regina who's here, Regina Nippert, was so instrumental in introducing us to a set of people there. But we also do plan to come to South Dallas, and I was just speaking to a gentleman who Betsy and Antoine met there, and I know Antoine, you might say some more specific things about that.
No, yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I think it goes back to, again, the door knocking model, because we have many dialogues about the growth and how fast can you grow. And, I'm an optimistic guy too. And I one thought when I left New York, I'm like, oh, come down here and they're going to be excited. And then we'll be in South Dallas by this March and this and this. And then I got here and it's like, oh, the kids can't even travel from West Dallas to Hunter's office without taking 2 hours. I can't even figure out which part of South Dallas is South Dallas because everyone says Oak Cliff, South Dallas Fair Park, Southern Sector, that's it, right? So you get here and you realize, like, wow, we're in a big, giant community, and Michael Sorrell talks about it a lot, the food deserts in South Dallas. How do you tackle these issues? Betsy and I just visited Vickery Meadows the other day, and the population up there, I mean, we want to take it all, but it's like, how do you get there? And so Betsy said, okay, well, I think we need to learn the trains ourselves, the public system. So I had a meeting in Mockingbird Station. I was like, okay, Betsy, I'm going on the train. I'm not going to drive today. I'm going on the train. So I think it's going to be the door knocking and then building those relationships with those young people. And those young people are going to introduce us to more people. And again, the doorkeepers in South Dallas, because then those kids would be the advocates and saying, dude, you need to check this out. Over here in West Dallas, we rocking, so catch up. And hopefully that's what's going to happen, but it's going to take a while. And I'm here for the long haul, so I'll be with y'all for a while. I'm still trying to learn. That's good. Okay.
Other questions?
Hello, my name's Ronnie Mestis, and I'm the president of West Dallas 1, and I'm a neighbor of Pinkston. I'm an alumni there too, but I live in Los Altos, and I sleep there, eat a lot there, and live there. So the funding, I'm curious about that. Is since you're not government funded, you're going to be there for a while because the trust thing, it's really horrible. West Dallas is saturated with nonprofits, faith-based, and it's hard to trust anybody in there,
Right.
But we do have a lot of partners that we work with, and we're just a young grassroots neighborhood association. We go from that beautiful new bridge to Loop 12, and we're just trying to partner with. I met Miss Lewis, I believe, back in October.
PTA meeting, Pinkston High School.
Right,
Yep.
and we were fighting that. Variants at alcohol, they wanted to sell alcohol at Minyards, and you guys were at Minyards too, so we do want to partner with you guys, and I want to meet with you later on.
Great.
But I hope you do stay, because I think it's a good program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And question behind?
I think I'll talk a little. Can everybody hear me? My name is Michael Bear. I'm the program director for After School All-Star Club Texas. And I just want to thank you guys for the fantastic conversation we're having. So first time I feel like in Dallas, I've been actually invited to an opportunity to talk about poverty. And how can we eradicate that and really just bring food together. So I just want to thank you guys. I think for everybody, thank you guys for this conversation. I'm glad to be a part of it. Anything we can do together, I want to be able to provide that for you guys.
What organization are you with?
After School All-Stars.
After School All-Stars.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, this concludes our last formal session of the symposium. I want to thank all of you for your attention and participation in the afternoon's program, and it's a very exciting new development for Dallas. From an SMU perspective, we are eager and excited about our partnership with the All-Star Project and look forward to its growth. We're actually not done, however. We're excited to offer all of you a bonus workshop to begin shortly. It's an opportunity to get even more hands-on experience with the All-Stars performance approach and community building. Some of you we know have signed up in advance, but the workshop will last for approximately an hour. It's open to everyone who can stay, and we'd love to have you stay and participate. Before I end, though, could I get a round of applause for our panel again? Thank you.